direction you should know. We are something we never could explain, like an open book you've read before. Walk away, I walk away, 'cause I finally know you. Walk away, I walk away. I have lost everything. No more needs. I will not be the same way anymore. I will not buy the same game anymore. This life won't find this way. I had so much to say. This life was right before I had to shut the door. Walk away, I walk away, 'cause I finally know you. Walk away, I walk away. I have lost everything. No more needs. I will not be the same way anymore. I will not buy the same game anymore. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast live on YouTube. And Anthony Prohaska from Disguise Coverage over at Cover One is in studio making a hilarious face at me because while the mics were hot, we literally off air just got done talking about our fears, right? We were talking about how we have arachnophobia, how we share that, bog
Snakes.
spiders, which
Yeah.
is apparently like a real problem
Yeah, man.
in the cranberry bogs. Talking about our shared fear of sharks and how that shaped some of our childhood experiences. And the fact that snakes, a shitty movie about snakes on USA Cable,
Rattler.
scarred him for life.
Yeah.
And then as we're sitting here talking about
Hold
it,
on, was that at 11 o'clock after Raw on USA?
Oh, nice. No, this was like a Saturday afternoon, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon
Chris,
in like 97 or 98.
made for cable TV movies, Chris. I'm a sci-fi junkie. Like I love sci-fi movies because they're terrible,
Yeah.
but they don't have to make sense.
Yeah.
But those don't get primetime billing.
No.
You don't give those the primetime billing. But so what was funny is he was talking to me about this snake movie, and literally it's like we always joke about our devices listening to us. I go to Twitter to tweet out the live show, a link to it just to let everybody on social media know we're doing this and that we launched successfully. And the first thing that pops up is a picture of one of the snakes from the movie Anaconda on fire. And I turn it and show it to him. And he's just like,
So
what
mad.
the hell are you doing?
Why would you do that to me? So mad.
Guys, I am your host, Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. This is Anthony Prohaska from Cover One's Disguise Coverage. And we are here live on YouTube talking about Bill's thoughts, right? Like, we just got done recording a really cool podcast about training camp ideas and some of the unorthodox stuff we're going to see this year compared to years past from the Buffalo Bills. We talked about the kicking game and all the nuance that's going to be into what your kick return coverage looks like and how it's going to be wildly different than anything we've seen in the last 40 years in football. We also talked about the makeup of the wide receiver room and some of these other things. But I wanted to start tonight with a conversation about all of the things that we really, really do not care about. Like, I feel like we are the hardest drinking Pettiest Bills podcast. We've got some of the best whiskey sours money can buy. What were you telling Chris? This was where did you say you had the best one?
Oh, so whiskey sour is my drink of choice. I get it literally everywhere I go. I've had a couple really good ones. My top 2, I forget where it was, but this random bar in Mobile, Alabama, earlier this year for the Senior Bowl, and then my favorite at Wayne Gretzky's whiskey distillery and restaurant, which is literally like right over the Lewiston Bridge, like 15 minutes into Canada. Those 2 are my top 2, with the Gretzky one being my favorite whiskey sour, and this one from Chris is legitimately up there. It is phenomenal. I'm also really intrigued by the pattern on the glass and the handmade ice cube. So there's a lot working for me here, but this whiskey sour is absolutely phenomenal.
You're not going to get handmade ice at Wayne Gretzky's,
No.
which, you know what, I
He's a
have
sellout.
from
Pat Cleary.
Pat Cleary in Canada. He brought down, I still have some left, Wayne Gretzky's bourbon finished in ice casks.
Oh wow.
I had never heard, I didn't even know Wayne Gretzky was in bourbon.
Mm.
The first question I had for Pat Cleary on this, is this 99 proof?
Nice.
No.
No, it's
I don't know why Wayne. If you're Wayne
such an
Gretzky
easy
and you
slam
have,
dunk.
it's a slam dunk. I don't know
It's
who
easy.
missed that in the
It's
marketing
easy. Yeah,
department.
right. Did somebody ask? Like,
Yeah.
was this not brought up at all? Easy. Should be easy. Should be easy.
Yeah, you should turn that off.
You can
We're
leave it on. Just
professionals
go
over
chaos.
Professionals. I'm a professional horse's ass is what I am. Guys, we have delicious cocktails, and I can't wait to dig into all of the things because, again, we just recorded a whole show talking about all the things that we are looking for this year during Bill's training camp. I also think that it's time to give due. We are the pettiest, hardest drinking Bills podcast, okay? And I think that there's a space for us to come together as football fans and talk about all the things that are either overblown or we just don't care or don't matter. Right? The things that don't actually matter that fans are going to sit here and call WGR about and complain about or hand wring over, that at the end of the day, nobody cares. Some journalist is going to devote at least a half hour, maybe an hour of his life writing about something.
Yes.
And I can tell you all right now, if you're watching it, Chris, give me my single. Someone's gonna do this, and it's going to be the biggest waste of their entire lives because it will not matter. And I want to start by kicking it off with this. Do not talk to me about Gable Stevenson. Don't even bring it up around me. This is the last time I ever want to have a conversation about it. Here's why. I've said this before briefly, and I'll say it again. This has PR gimmick written all over it. And I, for one, find it insulting. I think that his presence on the Bills roster is insulting. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Sean McDermott's out here eating dog biscuits and riding a tandem fucking bicycle with an obese member of the training staff. Okay? So we've come a long way since then. And I'm happy for that. At the same time, this smells like, hey, we just want eyeballs. We want national attention. We're going to take a former gold medalist and we're going to put him on our roster and we're going to teach him the game of football, which he's never played. He's never played. First of all, who is the last defensive lineman that this team drafted and developed into a high-level starter?
Brock Lesnar. No, I'm just kidding. Ed Oliver?
Ed Oliver?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many linemen have they drafted?
In the Bean era?
Bean era.
Oh, this is a fun game. Epinesa.
Lean in on that a little bit.
Epinesa. Sorry, I lost track. Epinesa, Groot, Basham, Ed Oliver, Javon Solomon, who we don't know yet because he's a rookie right now. Kingsley Jonathan wasn't drafted.
I'll give you some help.
Yeah. Dwayne Carter, most recent.
How
don't wanna
about
cheat.
Daryl Washington? Or not Daryl Washington, Daryl...
Adolphus Washington.
well, no, that wasn't
No,
Bean.
that wasn't
No,
Bean.
you know who I'm thinking of, the pterodactyl with like the 7-foot
Daryl
wings.
Johnston.
Daryl Johnson.
Oh, good call, Daryl Johnston. All right, so no, I think I nailed all of them.
I like that I called him Johnson, you called him Johnston, and it doesn't matter because you're not in the NFL anymore.
That's fair.
We can call you whatever we want.
Daryl
Daryl
Johnson, there
Johnson.
he is. Scroll down more. Oh, Harrison Phillips. Damn it.
So,
Fuck.
guys that we drafted,
I missed one.
they have no high-level successes in taking a guy who knows the game of football and growing him into a high-level starter, or even a mediocre starter after they got like a raw ball of clay. So the hubris involved with thinking you can take a guy who's never strapped him up and you're going to put him in the trenches when he's undersized. This whole thing is a sham.
Yeah, but how do you really feel about Gable Stevens?
Hey, Ring of Edwin in the comments, bring him back to the WWE and give him a mouthpiece. There you go.
So, Chris, and you'll get this one. Do you remember the film The Ladies' Man?
Heard of it? Tim Meadows? I've seen him live.
Tim Meadows?
With the lisp, right?
Okay. Do you remember Will Ferrell's character?
No.
He's
The Greco-Roman
He's the
wrestling
rich husband
Yeah.
of the guy. He puts the group together that's trying to kill the ladies' man. And you'll probably also recall that he had like a Greco-Roman wrestling partner who was just like in
Brian.
his house.
His name was Brian. A lot of baby oil.
And he's like, at the end of the movie, he's
That's why
like,
Austin was out of the Rumble that year. Baby oil.
and when he's going down at the end of the movie, when he's finally confronting the ladies' man, he's like, I'm going to crush you.
Wrestle me, yeah.
And he's trying to oil up, and he goes, and Lance, you're trying to oil me up. And I mean, that ain't cool.
Yeah.
Stop oiling people
He
up.
goes one by one to each person, telling them like what they did, and that's not cool. And he's like, and Lance, yeah, you're trying to oil me all up, and that's not cool.
I have a sneaking suspicion. It's this weird thing. I'm going to say it, and some people are going to call it slander. Sean McDermott loves wrestlers.
He does.
Is he bringing Gable Stevenson in just to be his Brian? Just to be the dude that he can Greco-Roman with around?
I don't want to play this game.
Now, that's weird, and I don't mean it to come off the way that I'm sure a lot of you are going to take that, but I'm just saying, does he just want that guy in the building? Because he's like, finally, I can get some free, like, he's just happy I gave him a job. I'm going to get some free training time in with a real Greco-Roman wrestler.
Like he should, like Stevenson shows up on day one at camp, and McDermott's like doing his like
already
headgear.
has
He's
the
like,
head
ready
strap.
to do this. Yeah,
He has the headgear on. He goes, well, no, I'm going to put my uniform. No. You and me are going to work out over here. The rest of the team is going to be over
we're not
here.
going to practice on the field. We're going over here. I think there's something to be said for him. Just like again, the whole upside I don't see the plausibility in it necessarily, but I do think it's literally just like he was like, oh, wrestler? Oh, some upside? Okay, cool.
Chris, go to right now. Bring up what we talk about this. The 2024 SPO-Track free agent tracker. I want you to filter it on available defensive linemen. Just that's it. Defensive linemen available. Now, here's why I'm asking him to do this, Anthony. I also think it's insulting not just to us as fans and not just like the PR thing, but
the
I
guys that are
think
still
it's
free agents.
also insulting to every guy who's out there on the market who has actual football experience and potential.
You want edge or end?
Doesn't matter. Defensive line.
D-line as a whole.
Just do D-line right there. Bang. It's an insult to every one of these guys who's out here right now. So Carl Lawson, Yannick Ngakoue, Fletcher Cox is retired essentially. Brian Moan, okay? I don't know what he is, but you know what he is? He's a dude who's played for years. He's 28.8. I don't care.
I don't know who he is, but fuck Gable Stevens.
Mike Purcell. Mike Purcell is 33 years old. He has played in the NFL for over a decade.
Yeah, but maybe he doesn't. He's also old, and maybe he doesn't have the athletic upside of Gable Stevenson.
Hassan Ridgeway. Hassan Ridgeway is 29 years old, and he's an interior defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm them and I'm their agents, I'm pissed that the Buffalo Bills are giving away a roster spot to a guy who will never play NFL football when my client could be doing work and honing their craft. And maybe
my client, Brock Lesnar.
If you hit a rash of injuries in training camp, you're going to reach out to these guys. And there would be a petty part of me that if I'm Hassan Ridgeway and I'm sitting on my couch and I get a call in 2 weeks and they're like, oh yeah, a guy went down and the Bills need a guy who actually might be able to make the squad. And I would look at him and go, I'm going to sign, but also, do you understand that you picked that guy over me? You let me languish so you could bring in a wrestler.
Here's I echo a lot of similar thoughts
I'd
towards
personally
Gable
be
Stevenson,
upset about
but
it.
I just don't think like I'm not even trying to play devil's advocate, but like is Hassan Ridgeway coming in and making an impact on the team? Like he's a no.
Is Gable Stevenson?
But maybe it's slim, but maybe they're banking on the upside. I can't believe you somehow have cornered me into the spot where I'm advocate for my client. Advocating for Gable Stevens because I'm not. Like I don't think anything of him in any way, shape, or form. But I can see if I really had to kind of put myself in their shoes, I can see you're taking a flyer and a risk. But for who cares? For your defensive tackle, maybe 6 or 7. Who cares?
I'm going to tell a story nobody's ever heard on this podcast before. And some of the Potter went to college. He was
Harry
my
Potter?
roommate. James Potter. He was my roommate.
James Potter, Harry's dad.
He'll get
Holy
real mad.
shit!
He'll get real mad if you bring
went
it
to
up.
Hogwarts.
No, I went to Oswego, and
house is
Oswego
that?
has a club rugby team.
Yes, I do.
I'm going to tell you a
Division
story
3.
about what happens when you go down to places that you don't fit in. So I was 300 pounds, maybe 310 at this point. 19 years old, 310, 320 maybe.
And a bad attitude.
And I'm 5'11". So I was Puna Ford with none of the athleticism or money.
Or muscle.
Just But these guys were doing signups, and you walk around campus the first week or two, and they've got all these sign-up sheets, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing for this, or we're trying to recruit for that thing." Some of them are social clubs, some of them are photography groups. There was a rugby sign-up sheet, and the kid flagged me down and was just like, "Hoss,
Oh,
you look like you're a big dude. All right, did you ever play any kind of thing?" I was like, "No, I've never played rugby before." And they were like, "It's okay, just come to a practice." And I was like, I somehow talking to that guy and his enthusiasm rubbed off on me. Now, you having played rugby at a very competitive level. I'm 19 years old coming off the street having never played rugby. And I'm going to go in there and but I'm 320 something pounds. And I figure I'm big. I'm not soft. Of course I can go in there and bang around with the rest of these props and it's going to be fine. How do you think my first practice went? Anthony Prohaska?
I don't think it went well. I think you're probably sucking wind like a minute and a half in, let alone with everything that came after from a physicality standpoint.
Sucking wind doesn't do it justice. Yeah. We ran, and I was dying. My lungs were on fire, and I vomited. And then we line up. We all get together. Now, this is at like 8 a.m. I'm mildly hungover.
Oh, it's a morning practice.
And I'm mildly hungover. It's a Saturday morning. It's early. I get up. I slip out. I go do this thing. I'm like, this is going to be so cool. Like, I'm going to get in here, and then I'm going to tell everybody about it. It's going to be cool. I get in this. They're trying to explain a scrum to me.
Okay.
And I'm in here.
So you guys are binding and everything.
And I'm just not doing it with the right technique, obviously, because I've never done this before. And this guy who on like a previous rep had gotten hit in the face with something.
Oh, yeah, because if you'll bang heads.
His nose is just freely bleeding.
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't notice, and he's screaming at me about, "What are you doing? You should be standing over there." And I threw my hands up and I was like, I quit.
Oh, that's a fun story. I like this.
I quit. And there was one of those things where guys, I'm not a quitter. I have hung in for a lot of things. But in that moment, I realized that I had jumped into the deep end of the pool and I had no ability to tread water. And I had zero shame about telling these just gargantuan men, I'm too soft to be here. I'm going to go back to my dorm room and pretend this never happened. And I will tell no one about it.
This actually sounds like Fred Ottman when he became the Shockmaster. He should have just quit on the spot.
Well done. One of the worst debuts ever. Could Gable Stevenson be the new Shockmaster? That's what you should do for the thumbnail.
This is what happens when you don't understand the game, you don't understand the techniques, but just because you're big and I've got some muscle and I can do this, and you jump into the deep end with 2 feet, you find yourself in trouble. Gable Stevenson will do this. He will suffer. He'll produce nothing. He's wasting a roster spot, and it's infuriating to me that he's here.
Wow. I wasn't expecting anyone to have like any semblance of like real passionate thoughts on Gable Stevenson, like one way or the other. Like, no, like I really love him. I think he's gonna make the roster, or even the other side and be like, nah, fuck him. Like, why is he even here? I don't think I could find another person who would care this much about Gable Stevenson.
I am one of the nation's biggest haters.
And you know he was in WWE for a little bit, right? Flamed out. Did you not know that?
This just seals it. We're done here. He's dead to me.
Yeah, because it was the whole, like, they thought he was, I don't know if they necessarily thought this, but the idea was like the next Brock Lesnar. Take a dude who's a championship wrestler, bring him in. He's athletic as hell. It's going to be great. I think, if I remember correctly, I think he was kind of a prick or had like attitude stuff.
I'm sure
and
he
he obviously flamed out.
Because he has a gold medal, so he's looking at these guys going, "You're hobbyists. I win medal. I have hardware. I represent the country."
Which is so funny because
and they go, "Kurt Angle figured it out, but you suck, and your technique's bad, so you're out."
It's such a funny, like, yeah, you did that. This is a completely different thing.
This is a whole different thing. We're putting on a show.
Yeah,
you suck, and you have a bad attitude.
Please let me go from this chokehold. This isn't in the script.
Now, do either one of you have an idea that you think might be overblown about the 2024 Bills training camp?
I kind of have one, but if you have one, you can go first.
Oh, I'm going to have to think.
Chris has no thoughts.
This isn't necessarily about training camp, but you and I were talking earlier. I'm just super over the whole, like, anybody criticize, and we're going to get into one of the segments, but like
these Narragansetts are terrible.
Get yourself
but I keep drinking them.
At least it didn't explode on you.
I know. At least
foamy, right? That one worked. The idea of like call that inside joke, niche down. The idea of like, and I guess I'm hoping you don't die with the offseason, but the idea of like the Josh Allen conversations just exhaust the absolute hell out of me. Like, and some of it is, league driven or executive based, which we're going to get into. But the conversation of it, I see, like, especially from a social media standpoint, just like the detractors who say that Josh Allen sucks because he turns the ball over. And then, like, the pro Josh Allen camp is like, no, Josh Allen is awesome because touchdowns. I just think both those arguments suck and lack so much, like, context and conversation. And I see it just dominates the landscape. And granted, it comes from, like, the mainstream media. And I think that also, like, what I'm over as well within that, so many people that are, man, the hot take major media market sucks, like Get Up on ESPN or this show on Fox and this show on FS1, they all suck. But then you're out there like retweeting it and engaging in it, and you're taking the bait, and you're the reason that their numbers continue to draw.
They keep hitting those pinatas, and the candy keeps falling out, and they're going to keep doing it.
And you're all like, man, I fucking hate pinatas, as you're swinging at it and picking up the candy and like taking a bite of the candy and still swinging. Like that whole, it drives me nuts.
And
like,
you're going to hear more of it. It's only going to get ratcheted up as training camp videos come out.
And that's my worry. Like from the low tier, low scale, like, someone's going to tweet a video of Keon Coleman making a catch, and it's just going to be a basic routine drill against air. And
they're going to go, look how good he looks. Super Bowl. He's an MVP.
I told you this guy was a winner. Stephon Diggs sucks. We never needed Stephon Diggs. You saw Keon Coleman, the way he's wearing two cleats at the same time. He's amazing. This is great. Like, just that whole, and it comes with camp. It's funny you said that because it segued into, like, my next point. Like, that notion of, like, a surface level thing that it's okay to be excited about. It's okay to be like, oh, cool. But when people try to glean so much from it or make a narrative about it, and then everybody gets caught chasing their tail, and basically it's like much ado about nothing. Like, you're just arguing about like nonsense. You're just in this circle of arguing about some clip or some person's random comment or some straw man argument that doesn't exist. And it's just such a waste. And then people pick up on it and they pick up steam. And everybody's talking about it.
And then roster cuts happen, and everyone goes, oh, wait a minute. The three guys that we were arguing about all got cut. You just feel like an idiot.
What? Like, yeah, I can't believe. What do you mean, like, Andy Isabella is a
Oliver in the comments, I love Josh Allen, but each time he throws downfield, my heart does fucking loops. And you touched on one of the things that would be my pet peeve of training camp, but it's not our training camp. Because I saw it today.
The Mahomes throw to Worthy?
The Mahomes throw to Worthy.
Should have been picked off.
Worthy is the greatest thing we've ever seen ever on a football field, and it's the Bills' fault that the Chiefs got him. You know what was more impressive? The goddamn throw, because Mahomes
to his left,
rolled
flipping
to
his
his
hips.
left, and then threw it.
But also,
more impressive than the
if you
catch.
rewatch that, if you go back and rewatch it, a mediocre cornerback knocks that down, maybe intercepts it.
He's against safety Brian Cook, and so I retweeted that play and mentioned two things with it. I thought it was good ball tracking from Worthy downfield. It was a nice catch. And then, Mahomes rolling left, flipping his hips, and making the throw. But if you take that, and if your thought is...
this is the reason they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Or not even that. Like, just taking that play and assuming that Worthy is going to be sick. And I say this as somebody who... Xavier Worthy was my wide receiver 4. After the big 3, he was my top dude. I love Xavier Worthy. Taking that one clip and trying to glean his future from it, it'd be the same if he dropped a pass and you were like, oh, told you don't need to worry about him. He sucks. Taking that one thing and extrapolating it to like, oh my God, they're really going to pay, or oh my God, it doesn't matter. It's that camp content. You see one play and you make it this huge thing. Speaking of, I'm going to be at camp, so feel free to blow up all my tweets and give me lots of engagement.
It's like when Josh came out. Remember that screen pass we saw on camp that went right into the dirt? This guy fucking sucks.
He's terrible.
He's terrible.
He's going to be nothing.
I mean, he still doesn't know how to throw a screen pass.
No.
But we can argue about that for hours.
But you could take that one piece and instead of just being like, oh, it's bad screen pass, or he's not good at this one thing, instead be like, oh, told you, trash.
Well, he would be able to throw screens if our offensive coordinator was Chan Gailey.
Hey, here we go. Here's one for you, because I got plenty in the chamber because I am a hater. Reggie Gilliam and his usage, okay? Every single summer I sit here and I listen to people talk about something regarding Reggie Gilliam, right? They'll be like, well, he's listed as a tight end and a running back, man. We're going to see so much positional use. Like, he's going to be this unorthodox tweener that does both jobs. He's taking reps with both. They go in the red zone. We could scheme up all these plays, but Chris, I know you can't tell me, but try. How many times was Reggie Gilliam targeted in the 2023 regular season when nothing we were doing was working? When we were beating the Giants by the skin of our teeth because our offense just turtled? How many targets did Reggie Gilliam have?
I have no idea how many targets he has, but he is a key component to Buffalo, the city, not so much the team, because he's going to be very important if we want to Raising Cane's.
Which
Fair.
is priority number one.
Fair. How many targets?
7.
One single target. So don't tell me that this guy is something. Don't talk to me about him. He might as well not exist. He's Jonnu Smith. He's this guy He's this guy who gets all of this talk and he means absolutely nothing to the NFL on Sundays. He might as well not be here other than special teams. And that's fine. It doesn't mean I don't like the player. You can tell me that having a fullback who does a lot of things for you on special teams and is a good member of the community, it's great, right? But this is a guy who has never been a part of the offense. Double-digit targets just once in his entire career.
He got that touchdown pass against the Titans that one time on Monday Night Football.
He's averaging 1.5 first down conversions per season and never sees the ball in the red zone, as evidenced by his 2 career touchdowns. As the kids say, miss me with it. Miss me with Reggie Gilliam. Don't even bring it up around me. I will flip something over and leave the room.
You said, dude, miss me,
Chris. I get fired up about things.
Well, we have HemJ718 in the comments. I don't even recall him making a lone catch for 3 yards last year.
That's it. It's like, wait, you did that? I don't remember.
Was it against the Giants?
It probably was because they were
the
like,
Jags,
fuck,
maybe?
we need to try something. Oh, that
Jags.
didn't work either. Now, let me get to one that's a little more accessible and a little more reasonable, because this is me I'm getting a little loose. You know, I've loosened myself up.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some drinks flying around in here.
Well, you're already done with your whiskey sour, and you were done with it 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you pounded it.
Concern over the offensive line is
me.
overblown.
Oh.
I think, and I understand where a lot of it comes from fans.
Yes.
But at the same time, Chris, bring up the Our Lads page for the Buffalo Bills again for me.
Give me the single.
When you look at, give me my single. I love doing that.
There you go, single.
Okay. When you look at what he didn't do it. I bet you it's still on the show.
No, it is on your single. I swear.
When you look at what the Buffalo Bills are on the offensive line, we still have 5 veteran offensive linemen that we're going to trot out as starters.
Mm-hmm.
We also are going to have depth players who have spent time in the system and who we trust, and a rookie at backup center who we believe in, apparently, as a franchise. I think he has a lot of upside. Van Prank Granger was a very productive collegiate player.
Absolutely.
And then you throw in these talents like Lyle Collins, who is a very good swing tackle. I think, like, as you kind of put this together, because Ryan Vandermark scares me, but now we've got a seasoned veteran in the fold. Maybe Ryan Vandermark still makes the team, but it doesn't matter because you can keep like 9.
Ryan Vandermark is funny. He's such a better right tackle than he is left. Like, he looks lost at left, and he's phenomenal at right. I remember thinking in the season last year, I was like, wow, he could really, like, make some noise, and they put him at left, and I was like, ooh.
So you have all of these, like, you have all these talents in here who have NFL experience now. Alec Anderson, Ryan Vandermark, who they clearly like. They took late flyers on him last year, but they enjoy those guys. They think athletically they fit in.
Yeah.
They even gave him a couple snaps here and there. Then you bring in Edwards, who when they gave him snaps, they liked what he did in the run game.
Yeah.
And as we talked about during our last podcast, that's a thing they're probably gonna steer into.
Yeah.
And so you want to know, like, hey, we trust this guy, but he's also not making a ton.
Yeah.
Where else are you going to find a guy who you trust as a starter, who knows your playbook, and then also, or at least your system and the personnel?
He's been with Cromer for years, going back to LA.
And this is it. So it's a guy you're comfortable with. All in all, when we go back, I think Bills fans got enamored with what we saw last year, and they go, well, we lost our center, and what's going to happen? Go back to 2019. Yeah, sure, we signed Mitch Morse, and it did stabilize the offense, having a really good center in the pivot. Also, you had John Feliciano. Who was their other guard that year?
Quentin Spain?
Chris, if you scroll up, you can take the archive date all the way back. Go to October of 2020.
Oh, God.
This is what I like about our lads. You can just go through it. There you go. October 2nd, 2020. Bang.
Quentin Spain.
Quentin Spain. Quentin Spain came in here on a flyer, and everyone goes, oh, I don't think much about him at all. And then he earns a starting job, and all of a sudden people are talking about him as one of the better guards in football. And they're talking about how great he looks and all these things. Don't great quarterbacks make their offensive line look better?
Andrew Pagano in the comments, I'm assuming this is offensive line. I thought left good, right bad.
I mean, that's subjective, but here's what I'll say.
And then Oliver from England is calling you old man shouts at clouds trying to get with the kids.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Miss me.
With all of this. What I'll say about the right side of the offensive line is that Torrance as a rookie was really good. And he will hopefully continue to improve. If there was anything I care about, it has nothing to do with the transition of a guard moving to center and another guard coming in here. What I care about is, does Spencer Brown go out there and show that he's actually a right tackle we have to pay? Does Torrance go out there and play better and show that he now better understands pass protection? Because in the run game, I don't think he has many flaws. He has some. No player's perfect.
Yeah.
He's not, what's his face from the Colts? Quentin
Nelson.
What?
Quentin Nelson.
Quentin Nelson. He's no Quentin Nelson, but at the same time, he's good.
Yeah.
He's a plus player.
Left good, right bad. That was about Vandermark.
Oh.
Oh,
Andrew in
yeah.
the
I was going to say, I
comments.
might be reversing it. I was going to
Yeah.
say that in my head, and I was like, I don't remember. Good call.
Well, so my thing is the right side of the line has something to prove. The left side of the line is all veterans. David Edwards has a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, but Edwards and Dawkins have to prove that they can be a functional tandem the way that McGovern and Dawkins were.
Sure, but McGovern was only there for a year and they worked.
True.
I think Dawkins is good enough that this works, especially if you A, understand Cromer's system, and B, you understand what's being asked of you as a professional.
Yeah.
So you come in, you learn Dawkins, what he likes, what he doesn't like, how he moves, how he slides, and say, okay, if I'm going on this play, if I see a guy coming wide, this is how I'm going to move, and I expect you to just be here in this spot. Let the center figure the centerpiece out. That's on you and him to communicate. But I think that if you can get to things like that, you can figure out how to put together a competent enough offensive line. Because you think about the one that we took to the AFC title game in 2020, that line stunk.
Yeah. And last year's offensive line was the best.
Anthony, you're
this.
single? Go ahead, Anthony, you're single.
But by the end of the year, Anthony, we had Bates starting for us.
Yeah.
Bates was starting games, and so was the other guy we didn't bring back.
Daryl Williams?
No, who was the Chris?
What?
Moving forward,
Warren
just go to December
Warren
2020. This is the beauty of our lads.
Warren Sapp? Oh, 2020?
Guys, if you
December
2020,
20?
December. So now go to December 2020.
Daryl Williams, right tackle. He came
Yeah.
back the next year.
Yeah,
He was
no.
back in
So this is what I'm
2020.
talking about. Like you look at this, and then
Oh, Brian Winters?
sure,
Right guard?
like they had to shuffle guys around. Ike Bucker, that's what I'm thinking of. Ike Bucker
Oh.
was in that Kansas City Chiefs game in January. It's
Hicksonbaugh thinks we're going to miss Bates.
sure we probably will, but guess what? We weren't going to pay him. You weren't going to pay him what he was owed, and you drafted a rookie who did really well, and he lost his job. That's the name of the game. I think that fans are doing a lot of hand-wringing right now about the offensive line. I will tell you, Josh Allen makes his offensive lines look better. And when you think about like those stats where pressure rates to sacks, he's always been like, hey, I get pressured a lot, but it doesn't matter because I don't get sacked. Last year was one of the first seasons where that was kind of the inverse, where it was like, hey, Josh took some sacks because he was standing in the pocket too long trying to make plays. But the natural occurrence of pressures wasn't being allocated to his offensive line. It's like, look, we held. We held for the 3.5 seconds. We did our job. I think that he makes them better by default, and they already have a better group than they had in 2020, 2021, 2022.
I think last year's group was the best offensive line he's had in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Looking at what they could do in terms of pass pro and then diversity in the run game in terms of zone and gap schemes. I
I think the losses, or I shouldn't say losses because McGovern's still there, just moved over. I think the changes versus last year can be mitigated to a degree. I think for what you lose in Morse's mobility and fluidity in space, you're not going to get that with McGovern, but you get longer arms, you get a better anchor in terms of pass pro, and you get somebody who can maintain the depth of the pocket a little bit. And then Edwards, his physicality, his hand usage, his knowledge of the Cromer system, I just don't see them making these moves unless they have confidence in them working, and I trust in Aaron Cromer. I do think it's somewhat fair to be concerned about it. I think it's overblown to a degree, but it is a position group that I'm watching because Allen is great at not letting pressures get converted to sacks, but when Allen does get pressured, he starts to bail from the pocket earlier than he needs to. He gets a little, I don't want to say skittish, but he gets into, screw it, I saw a flash, let me go make this play on my own. And it's like, no, the pocket's still good. You can stay in there. You don't have to do anything. So that's like my only concern, but I don't think the offensive line is going to be a detriment or going to be a weak spot. I worry more to the comment there that was regarding Bates. I worry more about the functional depth. I liked last year that you had a solid starting five, and then you had Ryan Bates and David Edwards sitting there waiting in the wings.
Fair.
And now you don't have Ryan Bates and David Edwards waiting in the wings. Like, hopefully Lyle Collins can be this super six dude. Maybe he can, invigorate or get some like looks at guard if need be, or he can be that swing tackle if he stays healthy. All these question marks and pieces for him. But I worry about the depth because last year was an anomaly. Like, the Bills' entire starting five was healthy for the entire year and played together all year. That never happens.
No.
Odds are one or everyone is going to get banged up, miss snaps. What does it look like when you have dudes filling in for them? I think there's some more questions about that than I have the starters. And I don't know if the O-line as a whole from a starting perspective is going to be as good as last year or as scheme diverse, but I think they'll be good enough in other areas. They may not be a 9 out of 10 here. They may only be at a 6 out of 10 now, but somewhere else where they were a 6 out of 10, now they're a 9 out of 10. So now you're just reshuffling, changing things schematic a little bit, and then you can kind of mitigate those changes or losses, even if they are,
And that's why I think all the hand
Hey,
wringing-
let's go, Sal, in the comments. People need patience, whole new offense, throwing it all over the yard.
This is it. Especially, I wouldn't be against betting that Josh Allen is just week one. We're going to go out there. We're going to play Arizona. He probably will bail early on pockets. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to run around and wait for one of his giant receivers to get away from whatever small cornerback is on him, and he's just going to throw the football. It's going to be more of a 2020, hey, I'm going to run around offense. And just, it's going to be on Josh Allen, right? There's more on his plate this year. That's why his MVP odds are what they are. Because everyone's like, if this team is good, it's going to be because this guy says, fine, I'll run around and make some ridiculous things happen. That's fine because he has those abilities and he has the ability to mitigate what's in front of him on an offensive line. He's done a lot with
less and worse.
With less. So I'm not gonna lose sleep about the offensive line. I'm just not. Now you throw in a few key injuries. Sure.
In the comments, Drew, this is like a you thing. Bean's plan is a quick reset to start gelling the new people I'm assuming in the offense. 25 to 26 is the money year, and it'll push all the chips back, especially if Von's money's off the books.
It's not a bad thought at all. And so with that, we're hinging a lot of things on Josh Allen, and I think that, Chris, this is a perfect time to hit this week's Bills News Update. Because for as many things hinge on Josh Allen for us, there's an unnamed executive who's bashing Josh Allen, and everybody in our fan base needs to, Chris, say it with me, a goose fraba. You guys need to take a deep breath and relax, okay? Last week, I made the point about Nick Wright treating our entire fan base like a piñata, and how he just takes that big swing and all the candy falls out, and the attention and the clicks and the downloads and the views, it all just comes rolling in. He's not alone. He's probably just the most nuanced about it. It's unnuanced because we know you can see his angle. It's predictable. You're a Kansas City guy. You're at their Super Bowl parade. Don't tell me you're not biased. So it doesn't hurt my feelings when you say wild shit. At the same time, there are some people. Anybody remember previously, I think he was a felon maybe not a felon, but at least a misdemeanor criminal, Craig Carton.
Do you know where, Anthony, do you know where he started his radio career?
Oh, I thought it was New York. Didn't he used to be with Boomer Esiason?
Yes, but I'm talking about his radio career beginnings.
No.
He started at WGR in Buffalo,
Did
New
he
York.
really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's a fun Easter egg.
Well, so here's the thing.
Man, what a song.
Earlier this offseason, Craig Carton made something, he said something that I thought was ridiculous. He said the Bills were going to see a single season win season. Single wins for the entire season. No, that's coming. Hang on, I'll cue you. He said that despite the Bills not having finished with fewer than 10 wins since 2018, Josh's rookie season. Zay Jones that year in 2018 had over 100 targets. The illustrious Zay Jones. You know, the world beater, Zay Jones.
He jumped through a window.
He has more falls out of a window than he does playoff receiving yards.
No, he's done well for Jacksonville, but he was not the prince that was promised here.
Yeah, you know what? It's just weird. One off season, he was like, "Hey, I want to be like Marty Jannetty."
I hate
I want
you.
to be a coward and throw myself through a window like Marty Jannetty.
Charles,
That's really
Charles Clay,
Best
Zay
one
Jones,
ever.
and Robert Foster were his best targets that year. That's what he
I
was
will
working with.
still defend to the death Robert Foster. Injuries sidetracked him, but
The 2018 Bills offensive line, I love this stat. It was the second cheapest in the entire NFL. All 5 starters made less than $12 million combined. Taylor Lewan was making $17 million that year. They set him up to fail, and we still won 6 games. Okay? When you say something like the Bills are going to have a single-digit win season now, when you look at how we're constructed, what we have on defense, what we have on offense, that's just lazy, right? And laziness sometimes breeds the most batshit takes because these guys are just trying to keep pace, but they don't have any substance. It would be like if I was trying to talk about scheme with you, or if I was trying to compete with your show where I'm going to try to sound really smart about X's and O's of football. So I'm going to make up some wild thing that everyone's like, wait, what? Now they have to pay attention to me, but they're all going to figure out pretty quickly that I'm a moron. And that happened to Craig Carton when he said this earlier this week. Chris, hit me.
The first thing I think, of course, would it be Joe Douglas of the Jets? Would it be the GM in Miami? Would it be a GM in New England, starting the division?
Sure.
Right? And it doesn't make any sense for those guys anonymously to do it, considering the Bills have won how many consecutive AFC's division titles?
Probably.
3, 4, 5, whatever the heck the number is, right? So then I went full on Matlock style on this.
Oh,
I knew who the murderer is, Plax. I got it all figured out.
Right.
It makes sense to me. The NFL executive that put this out is Brandon Beane, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. Brandon Beane is now setting the stage for one of the all-time dumbest trades in the history of the NFL when the Buffalo Bills decide to part ways with Josh Allen. Because an anonymous story like this doesn't benefit anybody. So who's got an agenda against the guy who's never won a Super Bowl? Brandon Beane. That's your answer.
There you go, Craig Carton, FS1, The Carton Show.
This is Craig Carton talking about the unnamed NFL executive who bashed Josh Allen earlier this week. First of all, this is medical grade stupidity. First, he sounded drunk when he tried to say AFC East. I hope he was hammered when he's delivering that because I'm here drinking. He just referenced how fast I cruised through my whiskey sour. I'll tell you what, even I, in an alcohol-induced haze, couldn't come up with something this stupid. I don't understand how that man is allowed on television. One of my favorite things I saw on Twitter from Thigh Doctor, from over at Buffalo Fanatics, he just quote tweeted it and said, "Put that guy back in jail." Just take him back. Take him back right now. This is evidence. Oh, if this was the 1600s, we would have already pitched a pyre and burned him at the stake.
damn.
Guys, this is where we are now. This is what clickbait culture has become. And this guy is one of the laziest hack journalists that exists. So he's out here thinking, well, if I just take the biggest swing imaginable, I'll get enough traction that FS1 won't fire me. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't pay attention to. I saw that clip, but I don't pay attention to like mainstream media analysis for stuff because the culture is a hot take culture. It's not, you know what you're going to get for almost like any sport. Okay, Team A plays Team B tonight. We've got 2 analysts on the show. One of them have to pick Team A. We're going to make the other one pick Team B. The guy who likes B is going to say bad stuff about A, vice versa. We're going to have him just do hot take kind of stuff, and that's going to be it. Someone's going to retweet it. We're going to try and gain traction. So it means I've seen multiple clips from him over the years. Like I don't give 2 shits about what he says.
But he's like I said, he's one of those rare kinds of stupid that you almost want to study it. Like you want to put it in a jar and look at it.
He
like,
also says
how
a lot
did
of
you happen?
If I remember correctly, like over the
how
years
did you
too,
happen?
he says a lot of things that are always just like incorrect. Like he'll mention like teams that played games and that game didn't happen. Like he's wrong all the time, and so that makes me just be like, how do you have like a job?
But he's not alone. And this is the funny thing about how NFL executives are sometimes idiots too. ESPN hears the criticism, which I'm not going to read to you verbatim because, first of all, you've all already heard it. You've all already reacted to it. You've complained about it on social media, so I'm not going to dignify it with a callback. Obviously, ESPN is within their journalistic rights that when they get feedback like this, it's juicy and they know what they're doing. Yep. They're doing their job as journalists, and they're going to put that out there and let you consume it and react to it. But what's funny to me is that it's only given weight by these journalists because, and also by the public that hears it, because of the title associated with it. Would the criticism of Josh not winning the line of scrimmage regularly, would it feel the same if instead of unnamed NFL executive, it was professional tire assembler says X, or gas station attendant, or
my next door neighbor,
senior grill technician at Wendy's? Like, if you were to put that in there and then give that opinion, no one would care. No one would care. But because you go out and you say that it's an NFL executive, people go, oh, these are the people who do know football. They're running football teams. They know, and this is crazy, and these people are jerks, and they're hurting my feelings, and they're attacking my guy, my chosen guy. And then you get the people who are like, well, maybe there's some merit to this. Maybe there's not, right? I need you to hear this. Being an NFL executive does not make you immune from being just as stupid as Chris and I sitting here doing a podcast. It doesn't make you any smarter than us just because you have the title.
Our setup says otherwise.
Now, here's what I'm going to do as a fun exercise. I'm going to read some quotes to Anthony here, who is a smart football person. I understand if you can't nail it, you get a lot of bonus points if you can. I'm going to read these quotes came from NFL executives. If you can figure out who they're talking about or who said it, like I said.
Current NFL executives? Or just at one point?
Current and former.
Okay, fair enough.
Allegedly.
Miss me.
He represents a significant addition to this franchise and reflects our commitment to putting the best possible product on the field. Now, if you can't name the player, what type of player does it sound like that NFL executive is talking about acquiring?
One with a troubled past in some way. Or someone that's something that's like kind of like people will be like, oh, really? Like that raises eyebrows.
But also it sounds like that person is saying like, hey, we believe that this thing makes us a winner.
Yes.
Chris, you know who it was? Jets owner Woody Johnson, the day after trading for Brett Favre and cutting Chad Pennington.
Oh, wow.
Now,
I was going to go Jerry Jones with Greg Hardy.
Now, this is funny because Pennington would go on to lead Miami to an AFC title that year.
They did. They won 11-5.
And they would clinch it by beating the Jets in New Jersey at home to end the season.
Favre's arm fell apart. He couldn't throw like more than 10 yards downfield. And then he went to Minnesota and his arm like hit the fountain of youth. And he was slinging it everywhere.
Well, maybe his arm was just numb from sexting all the masseuses.
Oh, that's fair. Damn.
He can't throw on Sunday. He's got tendonitis from all the texting he's been doing. You know, those old thumbs, he's just burning up the wire.
Damn.
Woody Johnson is an idiot. And you think about this, but he's an NFL executive. So if he were to say something like this about Josh Allen, they'd go, well, he did an unnamed NFL executive. Do we trust that guy? You mean to tell me that Woody Johnson, his opinion carries weight with anybody who actually understands football?
I mean, I trust him with vaccines.
What an idiot. I love that Chris just has to take his shots where he can get them.
Always.
Woody Johnson is not alone. Okay? Again, I want to run through these. Here's a good one. Oh, a real good one. Teams tried to trade up to get in front of us. So this is something we really feel good about. Time will tell, but we think he has the makings of a really cornerstone, foundational type player for years to come for us, and we're proud to have him a part of our franchise.
Is that about Tack McKinley when he brought his grandma on stage in
That was funny.
8x10 form?
Also, one of the funniest, like, great collegiate career that just flamed out.
Yeah, he didn't do anything for Atlanta.
He disappeared.
He had a cool name, too.
Disappeared like his grandma.
So if you're talking about so if my God, you're cold as ice. If you're talking about a player who this GM is telling the public we see him as a cornerstone foundational player,
There's some kind of flag around him.
and people were trying to trade up to get in front of us, but it didn't happen, and we're happy we got this guy. They must be talking about a quarterback, right?
I was thinking that, but no, I know this quote, and I've been trying. It's driving
Defensive
me fucking
end?
nuts.
I was going to say Skip Bayless on Johnny
I was going to say
Manziel.
Klein Farrell.
Defensive tackle, maybe running back, maybe.
It's not a quarterback.
No, that was 49ers GM John Lynch. Do you know who he's referencing?
Solomon Thomas?
Yeah, I would say Solomon Thomas.
Kicker Jake Moody,
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was thinking Solomon Thomas.
who they drafted in the 3rd round.
Wow, well done.
A 3rd round top 90 pick on a kicker. Chad Ryland went to the Patriots 13 picks later, who also sucked. Chad Moody finished. Jake Moody, whatever the hell, it doesn't matter. He finished 20.
Chad and Jake are interchangeable.
They both sucked. It doesn't matter. I don't need to remember your name. Moody finished 21st in the NFL in field goal percentage last year. 21st in the NFL. That's replacement level kicker.
Well, it's better than 22.
I mean, Tyler Bass did finish 23, so.
I'm worried about Tyler Bass.
But Chad Ryland converted 64% of his field goals. So you drafted a 3rd round kicker, and then you come out to the media and say, this is a cornerstone piece of our team, and we're pumped we got him.
For a kicker. That's a lot.
Are you starting to get the theme of this? Sometimes NFL executives say a lot of shit. Does it mean they know what they're talking about?
You're making me think of the Always Sunny episode with, like, sometimes science or lies.
And
Science is a
that's what
liar
I said.
sometimes.
Science is a liar sometimes. I thought about that the entire time as I was putting this bit together. Yeah. I was like, I wish I had a board with each of their faces and I could show it, and then I could just put like a sticker that says bitch on it and slap it on their forehead.
Isaac knew.
Here's the best one. Okay. Here's a quote from an NFL executive, and I put that in quotes.
Okay.
NFL executive. He's what I call a glue player. I watched 3 or 4 tapes, and at the bottom of my notes, I wrote glue/Chris Long. That's the type of guy to me who has more value than you can ever put a number on. Chris hung in there, gets a Super Bowl in New England, goes to Philly, gets another Super Bowl. Chris Long's a glue guy, and I think this player is another one.
Okay, so it's a defensive end. Or maybe not a defensive end. No, defensive end.
You were so close, like 3
Defensive
minutes
tackle?
ago.
Is it Jerry Jones?
It's like 3 minutes ago.
Damn, I don't know what I said.
Clelin Ferrell.
Oh, it was okay.
This is Mike Mayock, the disgraced, one of the worst GM hires in recent NFL history.
One of the worst picks ever.
One of the biggest busts.
You have to preface it with Gruden had control. Mayock was just GM with title only.
But Mayock
Shadow
came out
GM.
and said
because
all
you
of
have
these
to.
glorious things about him, and this is my point.
To.
Yeah.
But this is, and you
Gotta
just underscored an
politic.
important thing.
Parking lot politic.
He still gets to wear the title of NFL executive. He still gets to call himself that. Mike Mayock, that was him defending the decision to draft Clelin Ferrell, number 4 overall, a guy who has not had more than 4 sacks in any season in his career. That guy gets to wear the title of NFL executive. Now, here's a fun stat. The median GM tenure, do you know what it is in the NFL?
Ooh.
3.5 years.
I was gonna
Same
say,
as a
damn.
player.
It is
I was gonna say
3.5 years. Chris nailed
Yeah.
it.
Well done.
And a 2020 study, you just hit on the fact that, oh, well, Mayock didn't have control. It was Gruden. Head coaches last just 69 games on average.
Nice.
And that head coaches with a plus 500 career win percentage but don't have a Super Bowl last about 5 seasons. Even if you're a winner, if you can't get that ring, we will get tired of you and throw you out the front door in the
Or
NFL.
you're
coming
Marvin
for it.
Lewis.
And yet,
Nice.
somehow,
Man, every year.
all of the people associated, not just the coach who might have had influence over a draft board, not the GM who thought it was a good idea to draft a kicker with a top 90 pick who kind of sucks, and you could have just had Nick Folk for basically free. Not the Mike Tannenbaums and the Woody Johnsons of the world. Not just them, all of their lackeys all get to walk around with this title of NFL executive, and they all get fired. They get fired constantly. They are a laughingstock. And so in that way, you're better off taking your opinions from guys like us than guys like them. You know why? Because I don't get fired. I can't get fired. But
Yeah. I was say I feel like no comment on that. I got no.
I'm really taking this. I'm taking a lot of liberties right now.
There's a lot.
But if you're going to listen to them, you might as well listen to me too, right? If you're going to give these guys who you're like, well, they work their way up the ranks. Yeah, and look at the dumb shit that they do with it.
Yeah, but I mean, like John Lynch, for example, has done a lot of great stuff.
Sure.
Like raking him over the coals for the Moody pick. No one has a 100% hit rate because
Don't brag about it as a cornerstone player. That's a thing he said.
sure, that
and
is
now I'm supposed to put
hyperbole.
stock in the words coming out of your mouth.
That's foolish.
Because all they do is use hyperbole.
Fair.
Realistically, your cohort over there at Cover One, Hansel, put out a tweet about Josh Allen. And it was hilarious because it's like, he leads the NFL since 2020 in touchdowns scored. It's like 99. He's plus 99 when you counter in touchdowns versus interceptions. He's plus 99. Mahomes comes in at like 97, and then everybody falls apart underneath there. Now, earlier you talked about your disdain for that kind of like punditry. But do you know what would happen to the entire NFL if Josh Allen stopped turning the ball over? He would become Thanos, and he would just snap his finger, and everyone would disappear into just a cloud of like dust, or like I don't know, some of them PEDs, like just weed smoke, just
random Percocet tablets.
random perks.
Just,
Like this is what would
just
happen.
turn into a pile of perks.
That's just what would happen. So ultimately, anybody who has anything to say about him like not being great, you can have your opinion. Just know that if it ever gets tied to the fact that, well, an NFL executive said this, it doesn't carry any extra weight because NFL executives have said some of the dumbest things ever recorded.
Steve in the comments is upset that we didn't mention Alex Leatherwood when it came to the Raiders.
Tackle Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama.
Another Gruden.
Think of that draft. They had 3 first-round picks. They had 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. And one of them is like still
That's how
a
you
starter.
right? Is that not how you fuck up a Khalil Mack trade?
Well, and
right.
the-
That's how they got all the picks.
and the
right?
Amari Cooper trade.
Yeah. That's how
They
you fuck it
turned
up.
Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper into, I think the best piece that came from all those trades was Josh Jacobs. Which, no disrespect to Josh Jacobs, like it's a running back.
Who does
And
he play
Jacobs was
for?
sweet. Green Bay now.
There you go.
Which is actually a really cool addition. But I love Aaron Jones. And they got rid of Aaron Jones. Yeah, like man. Oakland turned, well, Vegas now, I guess. Yeah, they turned. They had so much draft capital, and they turned it into nothing. That's how you fuck up a franchise.
But hey, NFL executives, man, they know what they're doing.
Well, I think they know more than most.
I'm in the room. I know what I'm talking about. Do you, idiot? Because I could have told you Clelin Ferrell at 4. If you don't get Max Crosby later in that same draft, you are the biggest horse's ass on earth.
Yeah, but couldn't you also, like, you yourself have been like, you thought the Josh Allen pick was terrible.
Sure.
But
That's why I'm
everybody
not
had-
that's why I'm not an NFL executive.
But prospect of player evaluation in general is never an exact
you
science.
know who else thought that? The GM of the Jets. The one who drafted Sam Darnold. The Baker Mayfield
But
in
no-
Cleveland.
no one hits
their
perfect.
GM. These are NFL executives making executive decisions, and it turns out they're flawed.
Well, yeah.
So there are
Everyone's flawed.
highly failable individuals
Yeah.
who fail all of the time.
Yeah, everyone fails.
The war of attrition on these NFL executives is huge. They fail across the board by and large. No one holds their job forever. Why? Because it's hard to be right about football. So don't give, when you see a tweet from some unknown executive who doesn't want to put their name to it, first of all, don't go full Craig Carton. Don't ever go full Craig
I was going to say,
Carton.
too, real quick with that, too, I would put more stock in it, granted, even though they're fallible, if they attach their name to it.
Sure.
Because if you know you can give an anonymous quote and in theory no one's going to know you said it, you can say whatever like the fuck you want. Like, so there's maybe
100%.
even less merit. They might not even think Josh Allen is overrated and all those things.
No.
They just want to say it just to some dudes like to see the world burn. Like, I feel like you should put even less stock in it because it's an anonymous quote. Because if someone really felt, granted, maybe they feel like they can't attach their name to it, but when you know you have the benefit of anonymity, you can say whatever the hell you want.
And the funniest part's going to be when we find out that they were taking liberties with that title, and it's actually like the assistant to the assistant GM. It's Dwight Schrute just running his mouth.
Parking lot attendant.
It's the Jets version of Dwight Schrute just running his mouth to a journalist, and they were like, "Well, we're writing this down."
You're the assistant GM. I know you're the assistant to the general manager. The assistant to the assistant general manager.
All right, so I'm happy we got that out there. Chris, you look like you want to say something.
I mean, I was upset that we didn't play the other Carton clip.
Hit me with it.
The Bills are not going to be a good football team this
The
year.
Bills?
The defense
He's drunk.
stinks. They
Yeah,
don't
he
have any
is.
wide receivers for them to throw the football to. They did not, late in the year, they were not a pass-first offense. They were a run-first offense with James
it.
Cook, and he played great, Dalvin's younger brother. To me, Brady, did a very good job with them recognizing that they needed to change kind of the nature of the offense and commit to running the ball a little bit more so that they weren't all waiting for Josh Allen to make, the super-duper play on every possession. But they're devoid of talent, man. Like, pro sports is about talent. And if you don't have talent, you don't win. And Josh Allen, while he's a great quarterback and a top 10 quarterback, is going to have a major year backwards this year. Not because he got worse, but the talent around him got worse. This is going to be a single-digit win year for the Buffalo Bills. And we can worry about the Bills again 12 months from now because this is going to be a terrible year for them.
All right, and we'll go Chris Single. Anthony, you're going to be way smarter than me on this. Oh. So when I hear him talk about this, he's specifically talking about Diggs, Allen separation. I can remember the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2000?
Oh, absolutely.
And they let one touchdown on a punt return from some dude named Brandon Stokely. Who the fuck is that? Goes to play with the Colts. Peyton Manning makes him something. Do you remember Wes Welker with the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Not really. You remember him with the Patriots.
I remember both, but yeah, fair point.
Allen, outside of a direct snap, is your ball distributor.
Yes.
So he's at that level now where he can make people more talented than they really are. Because you don't know.
Or at least he hides your deficiencies.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And so, kind of a wrestling reference.
Oh.
Carton believes this is to be like Diggs is Mr. Perfect.
Okay.
And Josh Allen is Coach.
Wow. Okay.
And then Perfect gets injured. Well, what are we going to do with Coach? He's got no talent around him. Well, Coach has no talent. Mr. Perfect makes Coach. Do you remember Coach?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're telling me Josh Allen is Coach, has no talent? He's the only reason Coach was relevant, and while he's in this conversation, it's because Mr. Perfect made Coach
I want
a
to.
manager.
Damn, poor Coach catching strays.
I also
Yes.
want to point out that not only
That's a good one.
Carton sounds hammered in that clip too.
Yeah, right off
Yeah,
the
he
start.
doesn't sound right.
Here's what I'll say: he is the simple Jack of TV sports, and I just hope that anybody who's out there consuming his content voluntarily.
I put, I put it in the comments earlier. Skip Bayless is out at FS1, so Craig Carton is now trying to be the new.
Please
Oh
let
yeah,
that
you
happen.
said that's a
Bayless.
good conspiracy theory. I
Now,
like that.
for all the acrimony about Diggs, and this brings me to kind of a nice closing segue. There was clearly friction
Drew,
between.
you're single.
There was clearly friction between Diggs and the Bills front office. That much is obvious. He demanded a trade. It turns out we honored it. There was a lot of things, even though he was saying the right things to the public, I'm sure the conversations behind closed doors were much different. We wouldn't know anything about that if Sean McDermott could keep his mouth shut. He shows up and goes, "Oh, I'm very concerned." Don't say that. You just literally have to put your emotions away and just don't say that in front of a camera.
Especially because with how like naturally tight-lipped he is, the
Yeah,
organization is.
he
Like,
chose that
yeah,
moment to
right?
just like let the cat out of the bag.
So out of character.
So it's you talk about it, just what was going on in the weeks going into free agency and all the speculation about what's going to happen with Diggs, and then the trade happens, and then everyone's all fired up about the wide receiver trade into the draft, and that goes bust. Whatever the acrimony was, it didn't touch the locker room. And that much was obvious because at a camp recently, you had Dawkins and Rasul Douglas both kind of taking up for Stephon Diggs and just defending him, being like, look, this is a business, but also like Dawkins, he goes, he's probably one of the best teammates I've had. He was on Colin Cowherd when he said this. I think that what the world mistakes of what they're calling drama is just his passion for the game. And he loves this. He loves the game. He wants to win.
Yeah.
I understand it. I'm out there screaming at people on a Wednesday night for slow pitch softball. I'm fighting with a 59-year-old man across the field, and we're yelling at each other to a degree that it's alarming to the other team.
Well, that 59-year-old should get his shit in gear. We're out and getting dubs.
He's the best hitter on our team. It's it's awful. He's the most, but then he jogs to first and calls for a runner. And it's like,
Oh, that's
all right, Pat, you know everything.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, Pat.
Hope you're watching, Pat.
and then
Give
the
me my single on Pat. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the funny
There
thing
you
is
go,
we
single.
call him Uncle Pete just to frustrate him.
I like that.
And it's just funny because he wants to win. And he'll be a jerk sometimes, and so will I. But it's because we're sick of, like, we don't like losing. So that just comes out of you. It's not it's involuntary at this point.
Yeah.
And then Rasul Douglas is like, dude, I think he's low-key misunderstood. I think that nobody gets him because they don't understand how bad he wants that ring.
Yeah.
And that makes perfect sense. And so when you see that, and you see the players who he just kind of left, forcing his way out with the via trade, who have no axe to grind. And in fact, if anything, they're singing his praises while he's gone. It tells you a lot about him. And that it's just business, it's not personal. And so in that way, though, I think you kind of have to take this as fans, like you said. Like, you're going to see Keon Coleman catch a ball, and everyone's going to go, we don't need Diggs. We never needed him. He sucked. And it's like, well, no, that's not true.
No.
That's not true. We needed a dude in 2020 to come in, besides Josh Allen, who wanted to kill themselves in an effort to win.
Yeah.
And people needed to see that. That team needed to see that there's a guy who's willing to try to die to get this W. Look at some of the stuff Josh Allen has done. The cartwheel on Monday Night Football. I go, that could land some people in the hospital. Allen doesn't care.
Buff Bagwell.
He wants, oh my God. Josh Allen wants to win more than he wants to walk tomorrow. And I'll forever believe that.
That's a good quote.
Diggs is the same guy, and that's why they got along. But it's also the thing that
Throw them apart.
causes friction.
Yeah.
And it causes friction with everybody in the organization. And then when you don't win, that passion becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Understandable. What I will say when you dig into the analytics of Diggs, I think it's funny because we're getting lambasted for letting go of Diggs now. Do you remember there being this much like acrimony around Bill Belichick when he was on his, now mind you, he had rings. And I think that's the only thing that makes this conversation different. If the Buffalo Bills had won a Super Bowl by now, say they win in 2020, we beat the Chiefs, we go to the Super Bowl, we win the Super Bowl, and that's your game, right? We break this Super Bowl drought, we get our first one. Do you think that the conversation of us cutting a player like Diggs or trading or releasing or doing whatever we did to divest from a player like that becomes different? Because you see it in a different light. And you go, well, they're champions. It doesn't matter. Now they're just trying to get their books in line. Whereas now the narrative is we're wasting the window.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, they got to get their first one. No matter what it takes, they always have to be striving. Instead of being strategic, which I think most GMs would tell you is, most GMs who have tenure and still have their jobs would tell you have to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to reload.
Happens. Yeah. I think the narrative is completely different if they have a ring. And I think that's with every team that's won a championship. Teams that have won a championship, especially multiple championships, they get the benefit of the doubt with every move. It's if the Panthers pick up some random street free, go back to the episode we did earlier tonight, right? If the Panthers sign Hassan Ridgeway right now, everyone's gonna go, who cares? They have a terrible roster. Like, it's nothing. They're not gonna pay any attention to it. If the Chiefs sign Hassan Ridgeway, they're gonna be like,
It's viewed as a chess move.
They must know something that like no one else does. Like Spags knows something about Ridgeway.
You get that benefit of the doubt. You get that clout that comes with it. I absolutely think, if they have a ring, this looks like it's painted as a much.
And I want to explain this because you think about some of the moves he's made, they were ballsy. Ty Law was a big one because it went inside the division. 10 seasons with the Patriots, 4 Pro Bowls. Too old, too expensive.
He traded him to the Jets?
We cut him.
Okay, I was saying,
They cut him. He had one good season with the Jets, makes another Pro Bowl, and then slides straight into mediocrity and right out of football.
He got revenge by getting Revis later, though.
Yes. Mike Vrabel, 8 seasons, 1 Pro Bowl for like a period of time with the New England defense with Willie McGinnis. Like, they were good.
Yeah.
And then he gets traded away with Matt Castle to Kansas City for a second rounder, and his career just unceremoniously ends there.
Yeah.
Richard Seymour, 7 seasons in New England. He's actually like he's a success story.
Yeah.
Ooh, now I sound like Craig Carton. 2 Pro Bowls after getting shipped off to Oakland for a first-round pick. He's the most successful of all the Patriots cast-offs.
What about Bledsoe?
But when they... And doesn't that one burn? Drew Bledsoe gets shipped off unceremoniously, and they go, it's cool, we got this kid, Tom Brady. And we go, ha-ha! Suckers, you're going to start a young kid? We've got Drew Bledsoe. This is going to be great. Was it great, guys? Are we all having fun?
We having fun, everybody? Miss me.
So I look at this move to get rid of Stephon Diggs and his salary cap hit off the books. Maybe not Diggs the player, maybe not Diggs the person, but you needed that cap hit. And maybe a little bit of it was Diggs the person.
Mm-hmm.
Diggs the person needed to leave the building. Not Diggs the player. We love the player. The person and the salary cap hit, like there's 3 points of this. 2 of them don't fit. We got to make a move. I look at some of the analytics and I just think about it like this, okay? First of all, we get a second-round pick. I want to start with this. That's Minnesota's, which if, depending on who the starting quarterback is, could be a really nice second-round
maybe
pick.
things aren't great. Maybe they're a 6-win team, maybe 7. Maybe this is like you get a pick at like 30, maybe 39 to like 43, somewhere in there, like top half of the second round, which is a nice pick.
That's a nice pick. It's one of the richest returns for a wide receiver of Stephon Diggs' age of all time.
Oh.
You have to go back to like Julio Jones getting traded to find that. So we got that, which is nice. Also, it's hard to imagine a world where the Bills analytics group really loved Diggs at the cost, right? If you just took his attitude and his personality completely out of it and just looked at the player and his production and his cost, there's a bunch of dorks back there crunching numbers who came from MIT and they're going to Brandon Beane and going, I don't like this. If you're trying to moneyball this thing, this is not the way to do it. The Bills wide receiver Khalil Shakir, 2023, he was 3rd in the entire league in average yards after the catch over expectation, which is a nice, like, next-gen stats way of being like, hey, you were in a place where you should have been stopped by a defender.
You should look at I forget the numbers off the top of my head, but I put a tweet out, I think at the end of the season, based on like how many targets he had and setting that as the minimum, he was like, I think like number 1 in like EPA per target and EPA, like all these ridiculous advanced metrics.
Crazy.
Like, it was just wild.
But if you're just looking at metrics and you say, okay, he's 3.9 yards after the catch over where he should have been tackled on average.
Yeah.
That's a strong number.
Yeah.
He was also the only wide receiver in the top 10 to receive a single-digit percentage share of their team's air yards. Just 7.3. Do you know where they were all going? They were all going to Stephon Diggs. Meanwhile, Diggs led our team in the percentage of air yards per targeted, and he finished 59th in the NFL in terms of yards after the catch over expected, next to players like Devontae Parker and Cade Otton. Those are your comps. So if I'm an analytics guy, I'm going to Brandon Bean and going, well, I'm seeing something here and I don't like that. He's absorbing a ton of our usage and he's not producing a ton. Like, he'll still have highlight reel plays. The New England game, I don't want to take anything away from him. We don't even come back and take the lead in that game if it's not just this superhuman play where he should be down and he just doesn't go down.
Yeah, he pops up.
Or there's that play against the Dolphins where it almost looks like he's double covered, and then he just tells both of them to fuck off and just
houses it
yep,
sideline.
caught, screw you, spin move, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
I don't want to take those plays away from him. He still has use. He still has usefulness. But those are getting farther and farther apart, and what you're seeing is a lot of football where you have to feed him the ball in order to get him to a certain place statistic-wise that before he used to just create on his own. 2022, on passes of 20 or more air yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 350 yards. Passes of 10 to 20, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick when targeted, 423 yards. All of that came on 61 targets. That's almost 800 yards. Right there. He was our intermediate and deep threat. 1 year later, 2023, passes of more than 20 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks when targeted, 140 yards. Passes of 10 to 20, 6 touchdowns, no picks, 483 yards, and it took 62 targets to get there. So you watched the bottom fall out of his yardage production. Downfield, he's no longer getting away from safeties.
But see, I think this is where the film speaks to something different.
But this is it. This is
Allen's
why I like
missing
talking to
him
you
a
about this.
ton.
He's not looking to him in those moments.
Well, even when he's not looking to him, but even when he is, he missed him a ton this year. Like, I know the drop against Kansas City is a big one for everyone, and rightfully so, but Allen spent the majority of the year. Eric and I did an entire film room episode on it, like at 3/4 of the way through the year, trying to figure out where the gap was, and we just did pure film on deep stuff and Diggs and Allen and the disconnect. Allen wasn't sharp through a lot of the year last year, especially deep. Diggs is open a bunch. He wins against Miami in Week 18 downfield. Allen misses him. Allen underthrows him in Jacksonville, also overthrows him in Jacksonville. Overthrows him against New England. Like, Allen missed him a bunch. Diggs is... I know he's on the downturn of his career based on his age.
Sure.
I still think he's a very highly productive player. He's
Sure.
out there. L'Jarius Sneed had one of the best seasons of any corner last year. Diggs is out there cooking L'Jarius Sneed. He's out there cooking Jalen Ramsey, and this is towards the end of the year. I think people conflate the downturn in production with thinking that he's washed or thinking that he's bad.
And this is where two things can be true.
Yes.
You can say, hey, this guy isn't washed. He's a talented player. It's just not working for us right now.
Uh-huh.
And then also you can say, as a player in this franchise at that cost with this personality, we can divest right now and get the richest return for that guy's services that anyone's ever seen.
Fair.
Too much about this makes sense to do it.
Fair.
And so when he goes to Houston this year and has a big year, I don't want to hear any more of this Craig Carton horseshit, which it will happen.
They're going to
blow up, and he will have a good year in Houston. I want to brace yourselves for it now. He will have a good year in Houston. But with that said, it's not our problem. What we have to worry about is here in Buffalo. And realistically, they made the best of a situation and they divested early before that could go poorly. They made the Drew Bledsoe trade. They said, listen, we're going to get a premium draft pick back, potentially a top 40 pick.
Yeah, could happen.
For a wide receiver who is on the downside of his career. He might have 2 more good years left. Great.
He could ball out this year, but it's still on the downturn.
And personally, he's burned himself out here. Not with the players, but with the front office. Why not give him what he's asking for and at the same time get something that nobody else has ever gotten for a wide receiver in this position?
And you can kind of pivot.
Both things can be true.
And you can pivot a little bit along with some league trends and kind of redefine yourself within the term and scope of how the landscape of the league is working in terms of what you can do formationally, paired with body type and size and frame and athleticism, and kind of pivot a little bit while potentially getting out if you want to paint it in the most silver lining.
And so when another unnamed NFL
Playbook.
Unnamed NFL executive comes out and calls the Bills the dumbest franchise in the history of the world because Stephon Diggs is having a great year for Houston. Remember what we talked about earlier tonight? Even if you have to go back through your podcast archives and find this show and rewatch it and listen to the way that these morons who failed up, or at least worked their way to a position where they were allowed to be the dumbest people in the room on draft night, or the dumbest owners in the history of football. Remember that when you hear that an NFL executive has something to say about the Bills and Stephon Diggs now his newfound success while the Bills are struggling, it doesn't matter because they don't matter. That's my thing. It's what I want to leave you with tonight. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us in the studio for this tonight. It's been a lot of fun, but we got to get the hell out of here. Chris is giving me the wrap it up sign. Chris, I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Krueger. That's Anthony Prohaska, Cover One Disguise Coverage. And this has been your Rockpile Report.